Hello. I just wanted to start this off by saying I know that there will be things I miss in this video and things that I maybe don't cover or stats I don't mention or arguments not made. I'm just trying to put this argument out there so that people can at least hear um, some of the things that we are doing wrong, in my opinion, or things that we've forgotten to take note of. Um, so, what do I mean by the retirement age should no longer be 65? Well, largely, at least in the United States, that comes from the age of Social Security, or at least when you can claim full benefits. Um, when the Social Security Act was passed in 1935, the age you could claim was 65. That hasn't changed. Um, in case you've kind of missed something, we are living 90 years in the future. The average life expectancy for a man, who were most of the people in the workforce at the time, and it was brutal, brutal labor, as well as just poor living conditions and lower standards of medicine, the average life expectancy of a man was 62. So, speaking statistically, the average man never even saw one single social security check. They could claim early to get lower benefits. This is also true. Maybe they had some of their own savings if they were fortunate enough. But that age has stayed the same, while our life expectancy now for a man in the US, depending on where you live, I'll just, you can look at the general national statistics, but it's largely 70, we'll say 77, some places 79. If you're in some of the really, really good infrastructure, high earning states, it can be above 80. Um, the reason I say that the Social Security, or the retirement age, pardon me, the reason I say that the retirement age should not be 65 anymore is because times have changed. People are living longer, and in a world where there's all these workforce shortages or worker shortages or skill shortages, do you know who has some of those skills? Some of the people who are being subsidized on retirement. Because right now, we're going into debt. Social Security is the number one uh, part of the budget of the U.S. government. It is the number one, it is the largest thing our tax dollars go into. And we're going into debt for that. Now, you can argue it's about taxes and all that. I agree. We should not have tax cuts and operate on a lower expense budget and still pay out the same amount. But the fact of the matter is, times have changed. We are living longer, and there are more systems in place, such as 401ks, Roth IRAs. Pensions are becoming less common, but there's still plenty of options out there. 403bs. We need to realize that in order for this to maintain being a public benefit, it needs to be accommodating to the population. And I don't, I should probably find where he got it, but one commentator I really like to listen to is Scott Galloway, and I think he referred to, I believe it was either 1950 or 1960, where the average was 6 workers paying into one person's Social Security check, and now it's about 2 to 1. 2 workers. So we have to look at that from two different ways. One, you can look at it in this imaginary world where there's just more people or people are having more kids, but that's its own issue. I'm not going to talk about that. We have to adapt for the situation we're in right now. And to adapt for that, it means raising the age, having more people in the workforce, because otherwise, there's going to be this perpetual imbalance of a worker shortages or of all these people sitting back living off the wealth that they have already. Some even getting these Social Security checks that they might not need because of their pensions or because of how much they've saved up for retirement. But this idea that people are going to live 20 years on public money to just live their life while the rest of the world carries on and everything still works fine and everything's great, we're out of touch. We are just out of touch. All right, we can't have so many people out of work and still expect things to run the same. And I think that's one of the disconnects that a lot of people have when they look at some of these problems. They say my Social Security check isn't enough. They say, will I be able to retire? Part of it is changing the idea of how we view retirement so that we can increase Social Security checks. Because right now, we are going into debt to sustain a system that in itself is unsustainable. And that's no one's fault but ours. Um, yeah, I just wanted to put this out there because it's how I felt. Um, And also, a bunch of people then feel pressured, like, oh, they have to retire by 65, or they might feel behind if they don't have that much money. I know plenty of people my dad's age who feel like they're not going to be able to retire or retire within whatever preconceived notion, that 65, that, you have to have everything ready to go by 65 or else you're behind somehow. They're kind of experiencing something that young people do, which is we enter this stage of our life after college and we're like, why isn't everything coming together? Well, homes are more expensive, there's more hoops to jump through, there's higher standards of living, people view love and relationships differently. That's kind of our own fault, but again, that's an issue for another day. Um, so I feel like part of the conversation we should be having isn't, oh my God, world's on fire, my hair's on fire, we need to, retire. We need to change the way we view it. Because if we raise the public age for Social Security, that means people have a lower private or less years that they have to rely privately on their own savings. So, for example, if you raise it to 70 and you know that that's going to increase people's Social Security checks, they then only have to worry about their own private retirement funds for 5 years. Now, that's only in an ideal world where those Social Security checks cover that person's entire budget and living expenses. Again, Medicare is another day. We can talk about that another day. I also feel like that should be protected, especially because when you are old, even if you're working, older people are seen as liabilities to healthcare companies, and they need to be protected. That's undeniable. But I just wanted to put this perspective out there and have people respond to it. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your responses to it. I also put this out partially because like there are a bunch of European countries doing the same thing to an even like more extreme extent than what America's doing. Um, I love the French. I think they're actually far nicer people than people give them credit for, and it's a very, very rich country in history and culture. But I see the riots that go on when they talk about raising the retirement age. They're going to debt to sustain a system that is burdening their young people, and I see it as almost almost a crime against the state. Um, and even if you don't want to see it that seriously, it's a crime against your own children and grandchildren, burdening them with the debt and with a crumbling society and infrastructure because we want to go into debt to subsidize them living longer in retirement than we ever thought anybody would when some of these systems were put into place. It's just a conversation we should be having. So thank you for watching. Thank you. Yep. Have a great day.